Our guest today on Caribbeana is our good friend, longtime friend, Kojo Nnamdi, famous broadcast internationalist. Welcome, Kojo.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Vaughn.
Well, man, it's nice seeing you, man. It's a long time we haven't seen or spoken to each other.
This is true, and you seem to look younger than the last time we saw
Don't make me laugh, man. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. But you're still doing it. Tell us what you're doing now.
I host something called The Politics Hour with Kojo Nnamdi on WAMU radio with my resident analyst and friend Tom Sherwood. We do it at noon on Fridays for 1 hour. It's a call-in show in which we discuss the politics of the region, the so-called DMV,
Right,
suburban Maryland, suburban Virginia, and the
right,
District of Columbia.
right. Well, that's very, very nice, man. I mean, so now that you are sort of winding down, how would you have how would you characterize your career? I mean, I remember meeting you in the early days, man, at WHUR, and you just kept going and going and going. Was it your mission to be a broadcaster coming from Guyana?
No, I did not have such a sense of mission. I fell into broadcasting in a way because when I first came here, I was in part a political activist. I came here to join an institution that was developed in 1969 called the Center for Black Education, that was an offshoot of Federal City College, an institution that you know very well.
Yes, yes.
And the Center for Black Education started in Federal City College and then decided to relocate itself in the community on Fairmont Street Northwest near to Drummond Spear Bookstore.
Right.
Two were sister institutions. And while I was at the center, I was working at Drummond Spear Bookstore, and the center first produced a newspaper and then later on a weekly radio news magazine that aired on WOL radio on Sunday nights. As you will well recall, in those days, commercial radio stations had to allocate a certain period of time to so-called public affairs programming.
Right.
WOL, which was a very popular soul music station,
Right.
put their public affairs programming on Sunday night. So we were able to have this news magazine on Sunday night just before P.T. Green's show came on.
Yes.
I was editor of that magazine show, and when WHUR came on the air in 1971, I used to listen to it a lot. And then when they advertised for a position of news editor in 1973,
Right.
I applied and got the job and realized immediately that I had to leave my political opinions at the door when
Oh,
when I entered the newsroom.
right.
As you will also recall, because you were at WHUR yourself in those days, working on the Caribbean experience,
Yes.
we had the freedom to do a number of innovative things.
Yes.
And in the newsroom, we had the Daily Drum. We
Right.
were able to do a worldwide newscast. And that is what, in fact, launched my professional career in news and broadcasting.
Yeah, man. But look, man, you have made us all proud. This community has been so proud of Kojo Nnamdi, because the things that you worked on. I mean, I remember going to Guyana. I remember Walter Rodney, and
Mm-hmm.
all of these things, man. And you were in the center of all of this, man. Forbes Burnham.
Yes,
I mean, I even interviewed Forbes Burnham.
I remember that.
So when you look at things then to now where we are, how do you try? I mean, what happened?
It's I look back at those days a lot because those were the days that taught us, both you and me, and others like John Blake, how to navigate the world of media because we had very passionate feelings, especially about the places in which we were born. Right. You in Trinidad, me in Guyana. And so when the politics of the 1970s began to develop in those places, I remember it so vividly. There was almost a coup in Trinidad.
Yes.
And in Guyana, the government of Forbes Burnham decided to adopt a kind of Pan-Africanist approach to politics, giving aid to South Africa.
Yeah.
And then with the emergence of Walter Rodney, who frankly was my idol in high school and became my mentor later in life, with his emergence, the situation in Guyana became really kind of explosive because Walter Rodney, who was noted as a Black historian,
right,
who had written a great deal about Africa, goes in to an administration that is supposedly Pan-Africanist, but which he denounces as being despotic and dictatorial.
Right.
So the politics were boiling over. And so people like you and me, you and I, really were interested in covering what was going on there.
Right.
And so I was doing it at the time at WHUR, both for the Daily Drum and for the Caribbean Experience.
Right.
You were doing it for Caribbeana.
Right, man.
So those were really halcyon days that gave me insight into politics all over the world, especially in what was then known as the Black world.
Yes.
And after doing that for 12 years at WHUR, I served as news editor, I served as news director, I was a labor relations reporter, I covered Capitol Hill, I covered the State Department, and then, to my absolute surprise, in 1985, Howard University Television offered me the job as host of Evening Exchange. So that's how I moved from radio to television.
Right. That's, man, what a career, man. A book has to come out of all of this, huh? I'm trying to write mine now, but a book has to come out.
So am I.
Yes. When we look at it today now, with Trumpism and all this stuff, man, what's your view? I mean, from then to now, I mean,
I am so glad you brought that up because we live in a region and in a political environment that is overwhelmingly Democrat. And so in our region, there was the widespread belief that Trump would lose and that Trump would lose badly.
Right.
And so this region was and still is in a state of shock at the way in which Donald Trump and his right-wing agenda have come into power again. But the reason I'm glad you raised it is because one of the things our experience, you and I, working in this field over the past 50 years, have learned very early on was a phrase that was widely used in the 1970s and 1980s. A luta continua. The struggle continues. And when people who are now confronted with a Trump administration that it would appear has intentions that to some people seem fascist, and when they have taken power in the way that they have, a lot of people are throwing up their hands in the air. Some people are even talking about leaving the country and going someplace else. And what I say to those people is that my people come from a tradition of struggle. Our ancestors were enslaved. They had much less than we have today. How did they emerge from this enslavement? How did they emerge from racism and discrimination? They did it by way of struggle. They never gave up. Nothing was handed to our ancestors. It was not simply the goodwill of people that caused you and me to be in the position that we are in today. We are in the position that we are in today because people who came before us struggled to make sure that those opportunities were available for us. So if people fear what the Trump administration is going to do, that is okay. That is normal. But we know that we have to overcome our fear and struggle to protect that which we have fought for and that which we have gained. And I tell people there is little doubt in my mind from the people I know, from the people who I used to call my peeps when I first came here to Washington, that their children and their grandchildren will continue that struggle. So yes, we are surprised, we are upset about what has happened, but I think
the struggle continues. Yes, man. Well, listen, man, this has been such a treat, man, you know. So what's anything for the future? Anything planned for the future?
Well, like you, I am working on a memoir, and if you're like me, I'm finding it a lot more challenging than I thought it would be.
Please. Boy, I have my brother helping me to edit the thing, man, and oh God, boy.
You know, Vaughn, I remember at the beginning of James Baldwin's book, The Fire Next Time, where he said, I have begun this letter 5 times and torn it up 5 times. That is how my memoir is going.
Yeah.
I start over and over again and again, but ultimately, hopefully, I will conclude it. And I know that you, who has written books before, I have never written a book. You've written books, so I know that you will conclude yours. And I'm hoping and determined to conclude mine also.
Yes, yeah, man. Yes. I'm working on it. I'm going to finish it. I mean, I'm so engrossed in this thing. I've started another book called Word Masters of Island Comedy. How Caribbean comedy, you know, do jokes and laughter, the oral tradition and so forth. And that's another exciting thing, you know. So much material I have, you know, so it's keeping me active, and I'm glad and grateful for that, man.
So you've gone from the musical instrument, the pan, to the vocal instrument.
Right.
The voice. Nice.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, Kojo, thanks for talking to us, and I want to wish you good luck, Godspeed, and the best of everything to you, my friend.
Vaughn, thank you so much for inviting me. It's especially important coming from you because, in a way, we have traveled this road together for the past 50 years.
Yes, man. Yes. All right.
Okay, my brother.
All right. Take care.
One love.
Bye. I've been speaking with Kojo Nnamdi, international broadcaster originally from Guyana, but residing here in the USA. This is Vaughn Martin. Caribbeana continues.